Hakjam Entertainment.
They took the emotion out. They made sure they were funny. You know, you have the parts in Django where, I think it was during the beginning part where he had like that real like silly outfit on. So when he killed the whites, you're paying attention to the death, but the outfit took away the sting of the death. So it became comedy. Whereas even when they were killing John Johnson's character, that was Big Daddy, and remember Dr. King Schultz, who was like basically his mentor in the movie, gave him permission to kill Don Johnson's character, which was Big Daddy. And then towards the end, when he was going back to get Kerry Washington's character, all the times he was shooting the lower class whites, all of them were real comical. You're laughing at it. He's shooting the guy in the groin, he's shooting the guy in the stomach, the guy is sitting in a big huge tub. So it's all funny, because you gotta realize whites look at movies like this. They look at slave movies as much as we do, because they like to see themselves in the power in a power position where they're dominating black people. So at the end of the day, when you see movies where whites are killing blacks, they gotta make sure that when they make these movies, that they're not only catering to the black mind but to the white mind. It's two different people that they're catering to, especially with someone like Quentin Tarantino, who has a fetish for black women. And so you see that in the movie, whereas because every person, and as you know, you're a filmmaker, people interject themselves in movies whether they're a writer, producer, or director. And so when you look at a movie like, let's say, Django, you got to ask yourself, who is Tarantino in the movie? And Tarantino in the movie is Candyland. That's what's the guy's name in the movie that played as the slave master over Candyland? Leonardo DiCaprio, because he had all the power over the black women. And so you look at a person like Tarantino, where he is in every one of his movies, even going back to Jackie Brown, there was this black woman fetish in the movie with Robert De Niro in the movie. So he plays out his African woman fantasy in these movies. And so even with a movie, I just saw it today called Urge, and in the movie it's about Pierce Brosnan. He plays as this drug dealer that gives these white kids this drug where they're told you can only take it one time. And as with white people, they're naturally addicted to everything, because it takes them a certain amount of chemicals in order for them to get that reaction. Whereas with black people, because of having the natural melanin with us, immediately our melanin binds to that drug immediately. So we get the natural propensity to get higher than the rest of the Neanderthal group. But in that movie, they took the drug, and so it made them respond to things within the subconscious that people wouldn't know. It's like when you hold your tongue when you really want to say something but you don't really say it, the drug made you say it or made you do it. So if you're looking at somebody and you're like, I want to strangle this person, the drug itself made them do it. Whereas it literally telling them in the movie that it allowed, that drug took them to a next level. And it's like literally these are movies that play on the subconscious. Even with movies like, let's say for example, 12 Years a Slave. Whereas 12 Years a Slave is literally a lie. The reason why is because when you look and you study the man's life, that was a real slave that was kidnapped and put in chains for 12 years. But yeah, I realize who made the movie. Brad Pitt made the movie. Brad Pitt again interjected himself as being an abolitionist. And there was no abolitionist in that man's life. But they did whatever they could to lessen the blow of what was going on to not only him, but our sister Lupita, that was going through what she was going through. It was a constant enslavement. She was being slapped around. She was being raped in the movie. And so you gotta realize, in the white mind, I gotta recreate these slave movies to keep instilling in black people black oppression, so that let's say now then they They remade Roots, you know, and then when they remade Roots, they had to bring in a black director or writer. When they had Underground, they had to bring in a black woman so that it could be co-signed, so that black people can see, oh, it was a black person who made it, so that I can become a, you know, I can look at it because it might have a black perspective. But again, but then when you look at a movie such as Birth of a Nation, whereas this is all made by Nate Parker, with him raising the money, him, you know, making sure that nobody took it and tried to condition it. Whereas in the movie, it's African spirituality in the beginning of the movie. You have a good tale of Nat Turner's life, whereas everything that happened to him and that happened to his wife, and it was a breaking point that, you know, he was used to and use that word of God and that Bible to enslave the other people, to make the slaves more submissive, to make them better slaves. Whereas if you're looking into that movie, he's feeling that because he's the one they were using to make the slaves better. And so at some point, he rises up with the rest of the slaves to kill slave masters. And you have to realize that threatens white people, because then other blacks can see that as an example of an uprising against white oppression in America. The most poignant part was when he killed his slave master. You know, he allowed him to bleed out. Whereas the real story was he was beheading not only the slave master, but the slave master's children, the wives. They went around, and, you know, the further the uprising got, the more the slaves was a part of it. And not only did they, because in the movie, he watered it down. He made it look like it was just the slave masters were after, but in the real story, it was the slave masters and their whole families. That's why if you look into, let's say, the Haitian Revolution, they demonize Jean-Jacques Dessalines, but they will praise up, you know, the diplomat that was, you know, in the beginning of it, which was Boukman Dada. But then you go into the one that was enslaved and that was put in prison, to Saint L'Ouverture. They praised to Saint L'Ouverture because he was diplomatic. But then when you go into Jean-Jacques Dessalines to say, when he said kill the whites, kill the slave masters, kill the children, because if the children will grow up to kill us, they would never make a movie like that on their own as whites, because what is that telling them? Because he said because they will grow up to kill and they will enslave our children. He was literally giving you a blueprint as a slave, or as someone who was a general in the Haitian Revolution, to see whites in their natural nature. So to make a movie, something like, that's why a man like Danny Glover will never get any real funding to make a movie like that, because if blacks see that, to have a photographic thought process like that in their brains, then you're going to see like, wow, their nature is what it is. You know, so that's why these movies are so important, to be able to decode the message in them.